got my ratchet, got my 13mm or 1/2" socket, and what we're looking for is these bolts down underneath here. Alright, you got these two nuts on this bracket on the VP-44. It's connected to the engine. I know you can probably barely see it. You're looking through the through the driver's side fender well right by the shock tower. And it's just basically, if you look down ahead, you know, just from right above, you can find these pretty easy. Okay, those are the two bolts we're talking about. You can see basically the injector line hookups right here on the back side of the pump, and you got these two 1/2" bolts you need to take loose. Very important to get those because you can't get it out if you don't. So we're going to work on those. I don't have to show you how to do it. I imagine you guys can figure that out. I use a 1/2" a 3/8 ratchet with a 1/2" socket on it to get those busted loose. They come out pretty easy. All right, cut. Okay, got those two bolts loose downstairs there on that bottom bracket. Now what I've got is this is the best combination I found that works best. You got a 15mm socket. You got roughly, I guess, about a 2" extension, and you have a 4" extension right here. And I piggyback those and use my 3/8 ratchet. And now we're going to be working on these nuts that hold it to the front case. You got studs on there and these nuts thread on there. They're sometimes difficult to bust loose, but usually after you get them cracked loose, they come off real easy. There's not a lot of tension on them as far as that goes. They're not an interference nut or anything. And you just got to kind of hold your mouth right and just kind of snake that ratchet down in there and just pop them loose. And you may lose one nut or something like that down as you're loosening up the VP-44, and so they're kind of hard to keep track of sometimes. One drops down, it's alright, because this whole unit's going to be coming out, and you can usually find them because they usually stop and sit up underneath one of these little brackets, or on the vacuum pump, or on the insulation underneath there, or they drop all the way down to the ground if you're real lucky. But just basically kind of crack the bolt nut loose and just kind of work it by hand. I don't like to sit there and waste time with a ratchet all day long to the very end. I just kind of work it up by hand. Okay. Alright, this is where the rubber meets the road here. We got our pump puller, and you got the two bolts. Now you basically have to orientate that puller and find your two tap holes for those bolts. I don't remember what specific thread size they are, but if you get confused, you can always go back to one of these intake bolts here, and it's the exact same pitch as that intake bolt there. Man, that sucker's rusty. But, I mean, it's the exact same size, exact same pitch, so you can use one of the intake bolts for the air horn to tell you what size bolts you need to get. Or I actually built a puller one time that incorporated to the intake bolts, the two short ones down here that usually take off. That size, and I incorporated a puller that used those bolts. I don't have it here, but it was just basically thrown together, and it worked real well. It just had to, you know, if you got a welder and imagination, you can make anything work. But anyway, this pump puller, like I said, or pump press, I should say, really saves a lot of time. And you can get them at any 12-valve kit, or I gave you the part number to go talk to your Snap-on guy and get one. And if you do these a lot, I'd highly recommend it. Even if you don't do them, I'd buy one and sell it, because I guarantee you could probably get your money back out of it. And you just basically tighten these things alternately, kind of trying to keep it even as possible. And we're listening for kind of a snap. And actually, it didn't snap, but you can kind of see now that gear just gave what? Yeah, it's loose right now. And I wouldn't recommend doing what I just did, because you may have a possibility of throwing that keyway out. But I'm just kind of demonstrating for purposes, showing the gear is loose. And don't worry about knocking that gear out of time, because it's impossible to with the case in there. That gear will stay meshed in with the I believe it's the cam gear, and it won't lose its teeth. It can't come unclocked or anything, so you can't bump it out of time at all. So it stays pretty good. But that's why this tool is so good. And if you have a machine shop, you can easily make one. It's very, very simple. You just basically get on a lathe and turn it down. So, okay, now let me go get a pry bar, and we'll pick up here in a second. Okay. Alright, what I do is I got my pry bar here. And kind of tuck that back out of the way. We got all 4 bolts. Remember, you got 4 case bolts here. You got studs, and you're taking the nuts off. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and you got your 2 bolts in there. Make sure you have those loose. And then also make sure you got your gear pressed off the pump shaft, or you can hurt something. Probably your hand and your pride more than anything, but just make sure everything's loose before you try doing this step. I basically just got a standard pry bar, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically try to get some just some torque on this pump and just kind of work it back and forth. And it should pop loose if it's, there we go. Just kind of work it back. And this is where you got to kind of be real careful and hold your breath, and hopefully that keyway will be in that shaft. Okay, we're going to pull the pump out. Nice and easy like, so you don't try to bump the keyway out. And you should have the keyway pointing in the upper direction like that.